Hello, my name is Patrick Harlan. Today I'm going to do a little persuading you to help me get the Lakota Sioux land back from the Black Hills from the government. I know it's a heavy task of asking, but I mean, I need a lot of support. It's not like the Ponca people where we never actually had land, and you compare the land of the Black Hills compared to the Ponca Niobrara, there's no comparison. So I guess the first thing was first is that they signed a treaty with the Lakota Nation in 1868 at Fort Laramie, guaranteeing the Lakota ownership of the land in the Sioux Treaty in 1868. The sacred Black Hills of the South belong to the Lakota Nation, and they pretty much think it was very spiritual. You know, that's where they were born, that's where their food, and Native Americans were pretty superstitious that we all come from Earth. You know, even Red Cloud had mentioned that we can never own Mother Earth, and Mother Earth more or less owns us. But it kind of tells you that we've been fighting with the government the whole time, and Red Cloud was one of the main speakers for Lakota. The United States actually thought that the Sioux was just one big Indian group of people, but actually it was a subdivision of people. And it was, you know, it's like I would compare white people, you got your Italian, you got your Irish, all different groups. And that's the way the Sioux Nation was a huge nation. And they misunderstood that we didn't have just one leader, that there was multiple leaders of the Native American, the Ogallala Sioux, the Shawnee Sioux, just the different branches of sorts, and that just one person wasn't in charge, so they did, you know, had to delegate over who and when. And Spotting Tail and Red Cloud and Longhorn all went to Washington D.C. to do a delegation on who was owning the land. And at the time the president was Grant. And the Commission of Indian Affairs, Edward Smith, the U.S. leader, said that the Congress wanted to pay the tribe only $25,000 at that time for all their land and relocate the Indians and Indian territory, just like a whole lot of other tribes, to Oklahoma, which wasn't really blowing over with these three chiefs. And they said, you know, you can't put a price tag. And one of the chiefs actually said, "You speak of another country, but it is not my country. It does not concern me, and I want nothing to do with it. I was born there. I was not born there. If it is such a good country, you have to send the white men now in our country there and let us alone. You ought to send all the white people back there." Although chiefs were unsuccessful finding the peaceful, they did not join Crazy Horse and City Bull in the warfare that followed, which was, I thought, was pretty. A lot of those chiefs back in the day, they didn't really want to wipe out their own people, so they more or less gave in. And I read a lot about the Sioux, that they were like the last ones to actually fight with the United States for their land. And the Supreme Court actually in 1980 recognized the Lakota Nation and only wanted to pay them $570 million for their land. And Lakota refused because you can't put a price tag on land, is what one of the chiefs or medicine men actually said. And that was the price back then. It was 1980 when this was decided by the Supreme Court. And they was going to give them which I thought was really unfair, is that they gave them the price back in 1877 and said, hey, we're going to pay you back this plus interest for that land. You know, they didn't even give them what they pulled out of there at 500, and it was worth $4 billion. They pulled out of the resources in 1980. That's $4 billion, and they just want to give them 570. That's ridiculous. So I mean, that kind of stuff, the unfairness of the government, these kind of things just kind of get swept under the rug. They don't really tell you these in the history books. I mean, until you do your research or you talk to the the tribes themselves, and they explain to you how they've been messed over. Now, me being in economic development, we're working with a lot of other tribes. There's been other reservations that actually, like the Omaha tribe, that they had sold land, and the government at the time said that they would put the money in banks, trust for the Native American or for the Omaha tribe. But when it comes to paying them, when they would go collect their money, there was nothing in the bank. They had no documentation whatsoever. So I mean, it just kind of upsets me that, you know, the government is capable of doing that kind of sort of stuff. I mean, more or less, when people take money from our land, you know, trespassing it, you think they do the right thing, because people that come over here, you know, Europeans more or less stole the land, you know, and we are only 1%, Native Americans are only 1% of the population of the United States compared to the white people. Now that's very little. So I mean, at least give us half of everything back, you know, or, you know, work out, negotiate some sort. And you know, I do believe in that. We don't, you know, I don't say just give a guy $1 million, because I'm talking about education. I mean, that's the biggest thing I like to do, is more of an education type situation. Because I mean, the more educated we are, the less problems we have. I mean, we went through a thing with casinos. I mean, I've seen, being in economic development, I've seen where the government actually gives these tribes money, but they don't teach them how to run it. You know, then they end up hiring the white people to run these businesses for them. Then there's people that, I'm not saying all people, just some of the people will embezzle money. They will rip them off blind. They don't even know what's going on, and that's the really sad part. So I mean, these guys, these Lakota Sioux really worship that land. I mean, that's where they were brought up. That's where they live. That's really sacred stuff. It's not so much the uranium. It's not so much the gold. I mean, back in 1874, they sent Custer to check it out and see what the land actually held, and that led to the big Little Horn battle, massacre, whatever you might want to call it. You know, and I'm not a person to have a chip on my shoulder, but I mean, it's taking advantage of your little guy. I mean, what if people came over from another country, I mean, were better armed and took it over? I mean, is that just the way it is? We all know right from wrong, or, you know, you don't want to pull the religion card, you know, I mean, we do know what's right from wrong, and we still know that this is wrong. And it still will go to court. There's still tribes going to court over stuff like this. The Shakopee Nation, for instance, are one of the richest tribes in the United States that actually fund a lot of these other tribes to get businesses started. You know, and they're pretty much business minded, so they'll give you, they spend like $10 million in grants offering to other tribes. Now, they actually, and that's what the whole thing is about, being self-sufficient. I guess what I'm trying to persuade you into doing is actually giving the land back, being a less of a burden on the economic of the United States. So you figure all these people are living off the government, have been living off the government, and I don't really think, there's not really a time frame you can put on. Eventually this will come to an end of government supporting people. I mean, they've already stopped grants, they've already cut education. I mean, it's just an ongoing thing. I mean, you want these tribes to be self-sufficient. I mean, there's tribes in California that have casinos that give the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, their money to pay big taxes to provide for roads. And I mean, he loves that. It helps them out financially. And a lot of these other ones give us a hard time about building casinos because they think it is, and it is. Because when they put a casino anywhere, the bankruptcy rises in that area particularly. And that's a lot of stats on that. I mean, you can do any research. I'd say NativeAmericanEconomic.org. And but back to the Ogallala, the medicine man. He says, Paha Sapa, the heart of everything that is what the Black Hills stand for. Rick Two Dogs, he says that all our origin stories go back to this place. We have a spiritual connection to this Black Hills that can't be sold. He states that, I don't think